Peace and love, everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday Hope and Healing session where we bring encouragement, hope, share divine insights, at least insights that I've um, found to be very helpful in my own life, and where we actually share healing, actual healing for the physical body temple, for the mind, the heart, the emotions, and spiritually. And we do that through a modality known as Transcending the Matrix, which is a holistic approach that addresses all aspects of a person's beingness. And so with that said, let's go ahead and get into things for today. As we do so, know that I'm sending out a bunch of love in your direction, from my heart to yours, wherever it is that you are, wherever it is that you are on the planet, wherever it is that you are on your life. And I want you to know that wherever that might be, whatever life circumstances or situations might be being presented to you at this point in your life, even in this time and space called now, that wherever you are is not beyond the reach of God's love and God's transforming power. And so I just encourage you to be open and receptive to that. Now, with that said, that kind of brings us to our focal point for today. And it's dealing with connection and being connected to that which actually helps you to feel and be more of who it is that you truly are at the core of your beingness, right? Connected to that which gives you life, right? And I want to mention that in contrast to attachment. Connection and attachment are two very different things. In fact, I wanted you to just say each one of these words: connection, connection, connection. That actually, even the word itself, saying the word actually creates kind of an opening of the heart, right? It kind of begins to stimulate a degree of release of oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. And it's more of an open and free kind of vibration that that one gets to experience just even in the context of connection. And now, greetings, Curly Conscious King. Blessings to you as well, and to everyone else who's out there. And now I want you to say the word attachment. Attachment. Like when I say each of these words, I feel a different sensation in my body. Like I said, with the word connection, I felt an opening up, right? An expansion. Whereas with the word attachment, I can viscerally feel it, actually. With attachment, I feel more of a little more of a constricting kind of thing. And so I want to kind of relate to these two different things in contrast to one another, because we're hardwired for a sense of connection. It's part of the blueprint according to which we were designed to feel a sense of connection. That's why there's so many songs that are love songs. That's why romantic comedies are such a big hit and such a popular genre of movies. It's why some people really enjoy reading romance novels. It's why the dating reality shows and the reality shows based on people finding love and experiencing love are so big, because there's a natural thing that's built into us to want a sense of connection. Believe it or not, it's even why the pornographic industry is so big, because it's actually appealing to people's deeper desire to experience some sense of connection, right? Now, on the other hand, there's attachment. And by the way, I do want to, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say this real quickly. There is what is genuine, authentic attachment. according to how we were divinely designed to be. And then there are the cheap knockoffs of that. There's genuine, authentic connection according to what we were divinely designed to experience and to participate in. And then there are cheap knockoffs of that. There are distractions and illusions from that. There are things that we do to take shortcuts to get a perceived experience of that, which really isn't that and can't really truly be sustaining. And so, as what we're ultimately all about in these Sunday Hope and Healing sessions is about helping us all to get to a sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, not a temporary quick fix that would leave us sitting in a state of addiction, and that will neither be supremely fulfilling nor sustainable, right? And that's where the trick comes in. The trick bag comes in, because we get caught up in the knockoff. We get caught up in the substitute a lot of times, and then what happens is we end up developing attachments. Now, let me kind of just distinguish the difference between connection and attachment, because on some level, they could perhaps appear to mean the same thing, or at least something very similar. But in actuality, they really do speak to something very, very different, right? And so if we can just utilize these definitions, and the reality is that words are words, and they aren't things unto themselves, but they speak to certain things, all right? And we use these words, we use language to communicate ideas, and I'm going to do the best I can in terms of establishing for us a basic premise for what connection is, and a basic premise for how attachment is different from that. Okay, and then we'll actually do healing to help us to be connected to that which connects us to the divine, that which connects us to God, that which connects us to our truest selves, that which connects us to the highest and best versions of ourselves and the highest and best versions of our lives, right? Okay. And so connection, and this is just the simple distinction I'm going to offer. Connection is related to that which supports our highest and best good. Okay. That which benefits us. That which actually opens us up to be free. Okay. To be free. And when somebody is in a very connected relationship, they have a space where they can freely be themselves in their full self-expression, and it's a safe space to do that. That's something that takes place in connection, right? In genuine, authentic connection. All right. Connection brings us closer to God, brings us closer to our true selves. Attachment, on the other hand, pulls us away from our true selves, pulls us away from God, and ultimately binds us and keeps us from being fully expressed. Are you with me today? Okay, I'm trying to put this out in a way that hopefully makes sense. I know how I am perceiving it in my mind with this download, and I hope to be able to share it in a way that's making sense to folks besides just me, right? All right. And so when you think about things that we get attached to, sometimes we think that we're connected with something and we're actually just attached, right? We're attached, and attachment tends to be more fear-based, whereas connection is more love-based. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Attachment is more fear-based, where where connection is more love-based. Okay, all right. And so when we look at addictions, that's dealing with an attachment. Okay. In the methodology referred to as Transcending the Matrix, we have a variety. We have certain protocols that we follow. And there's a specific thing that comes up a lot of times in the healings that we do through Transcending the Matrix. And one of those things is spirit attachments. Greetings, Suni Maria. Good to have you in the space today. Spirit attachment. And what is a spirit attachment? That's when some spirit that is not going to ultimately serve your highest and best good attaches to you. The way that it ends up attaching to you is because there was something within your energetic frequency. There was something within your vibration that had a resonance with that particular spirit. There's something in you, in your thought process, in your field of energy, and your way of operating that on some level aligned with that lower energy, and then that was able to attach itself to the person, right? Okay, which never actually in that sense does not serve the person well, right? It'll attach itself to you, it can attach itself to you, but it's not good for you. You know, and rather than it being a symbiotic relationship, it ends up being a parasitic relationship. Okay, ends up being a parasitic relationship. In fact, a lot of times when people have addictions, you know, there are two key things that are tied to that. One is there's some emotional stuff going on that needs to be balanced out, and person is using certain things to self-medicate whatever the actual issue is, and then they get caught up in taking that particular approach. There are neural pathways within the brain that are established that actually give people a bit of a dopamine hit, an unearned dopamine hit, because dopamine is basically a reward hormone. Okay, and when we do certain things that give that dopamine hit without the reward, it creates problem, or the reward without what it authentically took to warrant that reward, then it creates some problems. All right. Now, the other thing that is typically connected with addictions is spirit attachments, right? And I did not plan on talking about all this today, but since I'm here we go. And so in that sense, there's situations where folk may leave this earth realm without leaving this earth realm, may leave their body and get stuck because they had an attachment to this physical world. And so they're not prepared to move on because they had some attachment to this world. And then not only attachment to this world and the things of it, there are certain things that they need a body to be able to do. And so it's good for you to be able to have some things, some areas where you can find pleasure that don't require your body, or they're not about the body. You know, there's a scripture that says, you know, that when you sow into the spirit, you reap of the spirit. When you sow into the flesh, you reap of the flesh. That basically what goes, you know, the place that you're operating from is what it is that you bring to your life experience. So like when the Master Jesus said to Peter, he said, those who live by the sword die by the sword. You know, there's a scientific principle that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Greetings, Carlista. Good to see you in the space today as well. Okay. And so in that context, this is also the case in terms of what we put out there energetically, right? What we put out there in consciousness, what we put out there with our thoughts, our feelings, our words, and our behaviors, right? Okay, and just the space that we're operating from, that ends up coming back. Okay, and so I digress. In terms of what will sometimes manifest as spirit attachments, is sometimes a being who is no longer in their body, but they're attached to certain bodily experiences and have not been able to release their earthly life, will sometimes get stuck here. And then they're experiencing this torment and pain because they've got these earthly desires that they need a physical body to be able to carry out and to be able to experience. Greetings, Ketrin. Good to see you in the space today as well. And so what will happen sometimes is that they will attach themselves to a human who still has the body, right, to be able to carry these certain activities out. So a lot of times we get these different addictions, and it's not necessarily that we're wanting that particular thing so much, but there's something inside of us that's wanting that. Sort of like sugar. When you have, and sugar is very, very addictive, by the way. A lot of times when you eat sugar, you want more sugar. And when you get away from the sugar, you don't want it so much. Well, guess what? When you're eating that sugar, a lot of times when you've got those serious cravings for sugar, it's not you that's wanting the sugar, it's the parasites inside of your body that are wanting the sugar. And then you're thinking that you want it, but it's actually something that's on the inside of you that wants it, not you. Okay. And so in a similar sense, I am going down way down a rabbit hole that I did not plan on going down today. But I did want to distinguish the difference between attachment, and connection. You know, and I presume Buddhism in general, and certainly Tibetan Buddhism, you know, there is a whole principle dealing with non-attachment, right? With non-attachment. And at least amongst the Tibetan Buddhist monks, they'll create these very elaborate sand mandalas, all right? It's a very intricate piece of art that they create with colored sand. It tends to be very, a lot of times it's, you know, very, very, very detailed. And it takes a long time to be able to create these sand mandalas, because they're taking pieces of sand, of colored sand, and dropping them in certain places. And then there are these very decorative designs made of sand that are relatively large even, and it takes a considerable period of time to make them. Well, when they make them, greetings, Optimal Living starts here. It's good to have you in the space. I'm sending a lot of love in your direction today. What they'll do is they'll expend all of this time creating these beautiful sand mandalas. They'll look at it for a moment and then destroy it. Is a part of their exercise related to non-attachment. Right? The idea of wearing this world and everything in it as a loose garment. And so a lot of the pains and a lot of the problems and a lot of the issues that we have are because we are caught up in attachment. We're caught up in attachment because we haven't yet necessarily figured out how to experience actual connection. And sometimes attachment can disguise itself as connection in the way that you can determine whether it is simply an attachment or whether it is genuinely authentic connection is, remember what we said before, attachment takes you away from your true self. Attachment takes you away from God. Attachment takes you away from your divinity. Attachment takes you away and binds you, constricts you, whereas connection opens you up and it helps bring you closer to your truest self. It actually helps to free you up. It actually creates a safe space. It actually connects you to that which gives you greater, more abundant life, right? Is this making sense? Is this making sense? Okay. All right. And so I hope that I've offered some level of distinction between attachment and connection. By the way, shout out to Coach Eugene or Coach Green Jean, who actually happens to be an initiate of Transcending the Matrix, and also just happened to have been doing a live today that was dealing on some level with a similar topic. I believe that his topic was, are you tethered? Tethered and attached are kind of synonyms of each other, if you will. Also want to give a shout out to an artist by the name of Monday Michiru, who has a song called Untethered. I will put, if I recall to do so, I will put a link both to Coach Gene's live that he did today, presuming you can still access it. I know that sometimes he may take them down after the live broadcast is complete. And I'll also put in a link for Monday Michiru's song Untethered. It's kind of a mix of spoken word and song, but I'll include both of those as well. Okay. All right. So let's get into the actual healing. Let's get into the actual healing, because again, what we're about here in these Sunday Hope and Healing sessions is not about giving us a quick fix. It's not about giving us some ego, there's the word again, some ego attachment, right? It's about giving us, about empowering us to enter into a state of sustainable, supreme satisfaction. That's something that connection can help us to get there, support us in getting there. And attachment is just going to be a hindrance to that. So let's go ahead and get into the healing. I'm going to start with a prayer and then we'll do the healing. If you know somebody who you feel like this will be a blessing to, that they could benefit from this, and by the way, everybody can benefit from it. But if there's somebody who you allow to be placed on your heart, please share this with them if you would, and tell them why it is that you want them to participate in this or to receive this. Okay. God, I'm so in awe of the majesty of you and the limitlessness of your healing power. And I feel so thankful and privileged to be able to be a vessel of your healing. Don't claim to be a perfect vessel of it. I pray to be as clear of a vessel of your healing as possible on today. On behalf of everybody who chooses to tap into this healing and to benefit from it, for the point of neutralizing the root cause of accepting cheap substitutes in the forms of our attachments, the things that we get attached to that we have a hard time letting go of, that actually limit, restrict, and keep us from being the highest and best versions of ourselves, the truest and freest versions of ourselves. And really transmuting that from the point of the root cause in the entire energetic structure of every strand of DNA and every cell of our body, from moving from that space and transmuting those things into photons of light and of love, and to really, truly, freely, and joyously to experience, operate, and flow in a sense of connection, where we're connected to that which brings us life, where we're connected with you, where we're honoring the connection, where we're honoring genuine, authentic connections in the way that they show up in our lives, and where we're able to really partial and part and parcel as a function of that, really be able to enter into that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, where we're completely, freely, and fully self-expressed, where we are clear channels and vessels for your goodness and your grace and your power and your beauty to be able to manifest in, through, and as us. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you. Thank you, God, for this gift of your divine love. And I affirm in Hashem Yeshua HaMashiach that it is done, it is done, it is done. Ashe and amen. All right. Okay. And so let's start with the ways that we get hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, and led astray, because there are a lot of ways that happens to us, and we go for the substitute rather than the real thing. Everything that God made is good and intended for our good, and yet there are also lower vibrational energies that want to substitute the good thing, the beautiful thing, and want to pervert it and take us away from our divine birthright, take us away from being ultimately and completely fulfilled. And actually take us away from that, give us a taste of what it is that we feel like we want, but it's not in the exact way that it was intended to be. In fact, it's very different than the way that it was intended to be. And then the intention of the thing ends up being bastardized, and then ends up setting us up for all kinds of negativity and pain and things that aren't going to really lead us closer to where it is that we're ultimately wanting to be, but end up being things that we have to overcome to get to where it is that we want to be. But that said, I do acknowledge that sometimes some of us need to hit our low point in order to reach a point where we're having the intestinal fortitude and the wherewithal to ultimately make a decision that we want something better for our lives, right? That there's a better way. And that's what A Course in Miracles is all about. You know, the recognition that there's a better way and finding that better way, moving with intentionality towards that which is good and that which is beautiful and that which actually allows our hearts and our minds and our life experiences to be transformed, right? Through the power of that pure love. Okay. And so with that said, let's deal, like I said before, attachments serve as, kind of they have a binding effect, not like binding a broken bone so that it heals, but binding is in like shackling. So let's, I've got an image in my mind of Carter G. Woodson's landmark book, The Miseducation of a Negro. And on the cover of the book, there's a woman that has shackles on her head. Okay, and so let's first and foremost address the shackles we have on our mind. Unlocking unlocking our mind. Unlocking our mind from all the things that limit and restrict us from seeing the greater truth. From seeing the greater truth, knowing the greater truth, and operating in that greater truth. On that note, let's unshackle our spiritual eyes as well. What does it mean for your spiritual eyes to be shackled? What it means is that you're so focused on what it is that you can see that you're not able to, where your mind is operating is you're so focused on how it is that you can see things unfolding that you're not able to see that which would transcend your understanding, right? So there's another scripture that says, walk by faith and not by sight. There's a scripture that talks about look not at the things which are seen, look not at the things that you're seeing through the filters of the matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation, but look at the things that are not seen, the things that you can't see from the perspective that you're looking at things from. For the things that you are seeing, those things are temporary, transitory, not lasting. But the things that you're not seeing are eternal, okay? And while you're focusing on these temporary things, you're missing the bigger picture. And what it is that you're feeling and experiencing is based on how it is that you're perceiving. So let's actually kind of deactivate our insistence on looking at things through our limited perspective and assuming that we're seeing the whole thing. And so with that, we're going to actually turn off a sense of spiritual and mental arrogance. Okay. And transmute that spiritual and mental arrogance. Okay. And transmute it into a sense of divine humility. Recognizing that in our ego selves, we don't know it all and we don't have all of the answers. Our lowercase s self, we don't know it all and we don't have all of the answers. Our uppercase s self, our higher self, the part of us that is divinely connected with God, is also able to be divinely connected to the real answers, the answers beyond what it is that we might be looking at through the much more limited egoic perspective. All right, so we want to transcend the limited perception that we've had in the past. And that limited perspective actually gets reinforced by other people's limited perspectives. That's why a lot of times it's said that when you have a dream, don't go just sharing that willy-nilly with just any old body, because not everybody is going to have that same vision and they can talk you out of your dream, right? They could put a wet blanket on your dream. And so, you know, it's sometimes important to kind of guard that, not give everybody access to it, not give everybody access to that information until you're really ready to, because, you know, there's a gestation period. You know, there's a time where that dream needs to be held close to you before just sharing it with anybody and everybody who may not be equipped to be able to hear the account of your dream and may not yet be able to see your vision, right? Okay. Interestingly, you know, scripture says that even Yeshua, even Jesus, didn't do many miracles when he was in his hometown because the people were only able to see him from a very limited perspective, right? They're able to see him from the standpoint of the little kid that they knew, growing up. And they were able to see him in his greater self. Right. All right. So with that said, let's open us up to actually be able to attract people into our lives. To attract people into our lives who can actually nurture our highest self and can help nurture us, can help support our decision to operate according to our higher self. To put another way, people that we can feel a genuine sense of connection with, genuine, authentic sense of connection with. Okay. Yes, everyone cannot have access to the baby. I agree, Curly Conscious King. In fact, I almost said that, referring to this as a baby. You're not going to give everybody access. Okay. And so let's strengthen us to be able to lighten and elevate our frequency, to be able to find and be found by our tribe. Our genuine, authentic tribe. Some of us have families that we resonate strongly with, that we get along with well, that hold the vision of our higher selves and can help support our decision to that. Some of us, that isn't necessarily our experience. But the good news is, I believe that we all have spiritual families as well, right? We refer to that sometimes as kindred spirits, right? And I think of that even in a, more in a maybe even a little bit more literal sense than we typically think of that. That there are souls that that we actually experience genuine, authentic connection with, because there's something about them that resonates in something within us, because we are perhaps of the same spiritual lineage, if you will. Okay. All right. I don't want to go too deep into that right now, but what I do want to do is really strengthen all of us to be able to find those souls while we are yet in the earth realm, who their beingness resonates very strongly with our beingness, and we're able to embrace that for what it is and for what it is intended to be. Okay. All right. And to be able to, because sometimes, someone will come into our life for one reason, and we might be thinking something else. So to be able to really be able to have the insight to be able to see what a person's purpose in our life is, and to be able to flow in and with that. Right. All right. So I want to strengthen us all for that. And to be able to strengthen our own resolve for self-love, to love ourselves enough to welcome such souls into our lives, and to allow ourselves to experience the joy of that, the unfettered joy of it, and to be present with it. Okay. All right. All right. Now I want to actually take a look at I want to take a look at a word is coming up, and that word is loyalty. We're going to sometimes we get caught up in attachments that aren't good for us. And I've been there before too. Believe you me, I have. We get caught up in attachments that aren't healthy for us in the name of loyalty. Okay. And we end up being loyal to those who sometimes we end up being loyal to others in a way that requires us to be disloyal to ourselves. And that's not healthy. Okay. And so let's actually redirect that sense of loyalty to being loyal to our highest and best selves, to being loyal to our truest selves. You know, there's a lot of talk about boundaries nowadays, right? Boundaries in relationships, establishing healthy boundaries. And what healthy boundaries are really all about is determining for yourself what it is that you choose to welcome into your life and what you choose to allow into your vibrational frequency. It isn't about punishing somebody, you know, for crossing your boundaries and almost waiting for somebody to cross your boundaries so that you can give them a piece of your mind. No, that isn't what it is. It's about determining for yourself that I am a sacred being. Though I have a body, at my core is divinity. And as one who consciously and intentionally chooses to align my consciousness with that aspect of me that is divinity, there are only certain things that I am willing to expose and that I'm willing to bring into my vibration. There are certain things, kind of getting back to that baby analogy. If you have a newborn baby, you're not just going to give that baby to any old body. You're not going to put that baby in the hands of just any old body. You're not going to let just any old body, be in your baby's presence, because you have a responsibility of protecting that baby. And in a similar way, you have a responsibility of protecting your vibration. And that is what one needs to be very loyal to. One needs to be very loyal to their own truest self. Now, that doesn't mean don't interact with anybody, because we're called to be in the world, just not of it. We're not supposed to be operating from that broken mindset, from that broken mentality, but operating from a place of wholeness and bringing our wholeness to humanity so that we might be active participants in downloading the kingdom of heaven into the earth realm. And we do that by getting to a point where we have cleared the shackles from our eyes and cleared the shackles from our minds, and we're operating in a space of connection with that which truly gives us life, and we're able to carry that and bring that into the path of others who are open and receptive to it, so that they too can be tapped in and connected with that which truly gives them life, right? Okay, and that's what the whole idea of this thing called life on planet Earth is really all about anyway. All right. And so I want to strengthen us to be able to establish healthy boundaries for ourselves in terms of what we choose to welcome into our vibrational frequency, what we choose to welcome into our lives and get into the inside of us, and to be okay with letting that which does not honor that, to let it go, and to know that we'll be okay in our letting it go. And because we get caught up in codependent attachments too, and to know that they'll be okay. We'll let go of and release the spiritual arrogance that tells our ego that they need us to be able to get by. Guess what? I've been in some situations where I got caught up in that foolishness on a number of occasions. And guess what? Once I was no longer in their life, they ended up doing just fine. They end up finding somebody else to feed off of or to take advantage of. And I did myself a disservice. I should have disconnected myself from the unhealthiness a long time before that, or never gotten caught up in the first place. All right. Okay. And so let's deal with the ego attachment of feeling like it's our job to, I want to be delicate now I say this. And I realize I may have to say something and then say something else behind it to make it make sense. To let go of our own messianic complex. To let go of the idea that it's our job to save somebody else. Okay. Yeah. We all need to be saved from something. And generally speaking, that something is ourselves. But we can't do that for somebody else when we're operating from the space of our ego. The ego can't do that. And we will never find success when we endeavor to employ the ego to do something, to fulfill a task that only God is capable of fulfilling. Okay? All right. And so let's actually strengthen us to let us know that we'll be okay even if we aren't trying to save somebody else. The way that you actually help set somebody up for their salvation is by truly walking in yours. Salvation, liberation, enlightenment, freedom, these words are all synonymous with one another, right? And what they really are ultimately dealing with is being free to be who you really are and to dwell in alignment with truth and love and peace and wholeness as opposed to brokenness, right? As opposed to brokenness. All right. And so let's again, let's clarify our understanding of what love is. Because love is not attachment. Love is not attachment. Love is connection. My mind goes to this movie. It's a Jim Carrey movie. Bruce Almighty. And Jennifer Aniston was his love interest in the movie. Character played by Jennifer Aniston was his love interest in the movie. And I think they may have been engaged or something. And he was caught up in the ego in a lot of ways. And he had to get to a point in his being caught up in his ego. And he got some power while he was operating his ego. And he used his power in a very egoic way, or in very egoic ways, right? And in so doing, he lost the love of his life. She wasn't willing to be with him anymore. And he had to come to a point where he had a reality check. And he had to come to a point where he actually, out of the genuine love for her, where he wanted her to be happy and happily in love, even if it wasn't with him. Right? He had to be willing to truly release her to her highest and best good. The reality is that he wasn't able to bring to her, operating from the lower frequency place that he was operating from, he wasn't able to bring her what it was that she was really needing. And so he had to release her. In his genuine, authentic releasing her, he was able to lay that selfishness aside. He was able to lay that ego self aside. And that was what ultimately brought her back, right? And so let's deal real quickly with the fear of letting go, and actually replace the fear of letting go with joyful anticipation of the good that's coming, the good that gets to be when we choose to be our true selves, our truest selves, and to feel safe being our truest selves. It really isn't real connection if you're not in a space where it's safe to be your truest self, where you're having to contort yourself into different versions of yourself for acceptance or approval. All right, so let's look at the addiction to acceptance. We're going to purify that through the power of your love, transmuting it into freedom to be free, and the freedom to be self-expressed, and to deeply and completely accept yourself just as you are. Newsflash, you're not perfect. You've got flaws and quirks and shortcomings, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. Just as part of the human condition. All right. There's no requirement for you to manifest perfection. Okay. Because sometimes you're not going to get it right. And there's grace for that. That doesn't mean, try to tap into a cheap grace and just act a fool with no regard to consequences. I'm not saying that at all. That is the antithesis of what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that it's okay to be who it is that you are, where it is that you are, while you're endeavoring to be the best version of yourself. Never stop endeavoring to be the best version of yourself. And at the same time, know that you don't have to live in fear, believing that you can't just be where you authentically are in a moment. And in the Transcending the Matrix manuals, in the Transcending the Matrix registration form for the level 1 training, there are a series of questions that are asked. And generally, people will like to give the polite answers to those questions, what seems to be the spiritually evolved answer to the questions. And I frequently have people go back and give it another go, because typically people are putting the answer that they think it should be. And these are answers based on their perceptions, how they feel about other people, how they feel about other groups, what negative feelings they might have towards another person or another group of people, right? And that's not something that, feels like an evolved thing to have, is animosity towards somebody, right? But I'm not looking for what the ideal answer would be. I'm looking for what the authentic answer actually is. And it's okay for us to be wherever it is that we authentically are. We don't want to stay in a low vibrational state by any means, but we do want to be able to find safe spaces to be wherever it is that we actually are. Okay. And so that too, being open to that, is also an expression of self-love, of loving ourselves enough to be able to draw that into our lives, and loving ourselves and the sacred other, if you will, enough to endeavor to be our best self for them as well. Okay. Here I could be speaking romantically and not romantically at the same time. If you love someone, then you want your life to be a blessing in their life. Right? And you want to be the best version that you can in your dealings with them, so that rather than bringing them pain, you're able to bring them joy. Okay? At least mainly that. Greetings, Jennifer Bliss. Good to see you in the space today. I know it's a little bit early. I think it's about 3 days from now, but happy early Founders Day to you. Okay, and let's actually strengthen us to be able to accept our light and to accept our dark. I'm going to purify that through the power of pure love. Sometimes we don't accept the light. Sometimes we don't accept the shadow aspects of ourselves. You know, while that isn't where we want to stay in terms of those shadow aspects, we do need to love those parts of ourselves so that we can bring the light of God's love and truth into those spaces so that they can be healed and transformed, right? And so that we can truly experience the miracle of a transformed life, a transformed heart and a transformed mind and a transformed life, okay? And ultimately a transformed world. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. I just realized the time, by the way. Okay. I want to make a couple more corrections before we close this out, though. All right. One of those is in terms of the collective consciousness of humanity, the fear-based perspective of collective consciousness of humanity, tied to the sense of limitation. Sometimes when we're operating from a space of a mindset of limitation, a fear-based perspective of limitation, we try to get things however we can get them, even though they're not necessarily the divinely intended way for us to get them. Okay. So we'll take the knockoff that brings us some experience that we want, but not at the level that we ultimately were intended to get it. Okay. And that's out of a fear of not being able to get it the other way. Okay. All right. So let's purify all of our mentalities through the power of pure love, and our visions through the power of pure love, our spiritual vision, discernment, and insight through the power of pure love. To love ourselves enough to choose our highest selves. To love ourselves enough to choose our highest selves and our best selves. And to forgive, and to love ourselves enough to forgive ourselves for the moments when we don't. That's key. To love ourselves enough to forgive ourselves for the moments when we don't. Okay. All right. And to open us up to the reality that with God, all things are possible. All good is possible, no matter how bad things might have gotten in the past. No matter how bad things may have gotten in the past, that it's okay, because we really truly are loved, and the lover of our souls. Greetings, Stella. Good to see you in the space today. The lover of our souls wants to bring us into the fold where we experience that genuine, authentic sense of connection. Okay. And so let's strengthen us again for the divine humility to recognize that we can't actually do life successfully completely on our own. That we were designed to exist in community. We were designed to exist in community. And to be able to really, so community is like common unity, right? There's a collective sense of unity. That's what community really is. And community is only genuine community when all of the members of the community have space to be their genuine, authentic individual selves as well, right? To show up in their own unique expression, their divinely unique expression. So community isn't about sameness. Community is about collective oneness in celebration of the nuances. Oh, boy, that's delicious. Just want to take that and eat it up. Oh, I'm loving it, loving it, loving it. Okay. All right. So, so with respect to this, we're just going to clear out any loose ends in terms of levels of the matrix, 18 of them, 180 of them, and purifying those through the power of pure love, any matrix grid lines, 17,000 of them, clearing through them through the power of pure love, transmuting them into building blocks of the unconditional love grid. Incidents, Akashic records, universes, dimensions, times, judgments, unknowns, a lot of unknowns there. All right, roughly 22 million unknowns, clearing those through the power of pure love. And then transmute, purify, clear through the light of the Holy Spirit, now, henceforth, and forevermore, for all generations of time, past, present, and future, the absolute, complete, permanent healing, absolute, complete, permanent, immediate perception of wholeness. Strengthen us to be able to forgive ourselves and all others, to forgive and forget unconditionally. Thank you so much, God, for this healing on today. Ooh, this has been beautiful. I'm so thankful for it. And thank you on the behalf of all of us. And pray that each of us also thanks you individually for the healing that we've individually received. Thank you for loving us so much, for loving us so much that you lovingly offer us opportunities to return to our true selves, to, with open arms, welcome us back to our true selves. And to be able to give us safe spaces where we can experience genuine, authentic connection with those who can embrace us as we truly are and support us in our decision in getting closer to you, getting closer to our truest selves. And I, again, thank you with the deep sense of gratitude and appreciation and humility and awe. Ashe and amen. All right, beloved. All right. Currently Conscious King says we need a part 2. Perhaps we will. And yes, Stella, we're sending a lot of love and intentions for your safety and well-being and that of your loved ones who are in the Los Angeles area there with the wildfires that have been going on there. Okay. All right. That pretty much wraps us up for today. We do have Transcending the Matrix Level 1 training / initiation that's taking place next month, February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd via Zoom. We've got a Level 2 Transcending the Matrix mental and emotional healing, neurological upgrading, and brain optimization class, also on Zoom, March 22nd and 23rd. If you're interested in either one of those, reach out and let me know. You can do that either on Facebook at Royce Fletcher Thomason, or Instagram at Royce Fletcher Thomason. If you haven't heard back from me within 24 hours, send me another message. It just means I miss it, because I sometimes get a lot of messages coming in, and it's easy to miss them sometimes. But I tell you what, 20-something years ago, when I had the opportunity to train with the brilliant and beautiful soul known as Dr. Cam Ewan, I made up in my mind that nothing short of death was going to keep me from being able to go through that training, and death would not be welcome before I took it. So I had a made up mind about it. And I encourage you, if you feel like this is something that would be valuable for you on your life journey, you feel ready to take this step as a commitment of self-love and want to use it as a way of supporting you and your spiritual journey, because most definitely, whereas I just saw it as a healing modality at first, over the years I've come to recognize it really is a pathway of spiritual ascension for those who are practitioners of this work. And at the same time, yes, it is a wonderful tool for being able to help empower you to help other people, yourself and other people, to be able to experience medical miracles. Okay. All right. So with that said, that again wraps us up for today. I love you. I love you. And I pray that that love reaches you in a way that you need it to be reached, and that you allow that love to permeate inside of you and to grow, and that you too will freely share it with others in a way that allows all of us to enter into this sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. And until we meet again, I bid you adieu with peace and love. Catch you next time.